Brian, how frustrating is it for a coach to deal with a bad kicking game during the game?
Oh, well, during the game, it's a little bit different because it just gets caught up in the motion of the game itself. I had to learn the hard way. When I was in Baltimore, I had a phenomenal kicker in Matt Stover, who was Mr. Consistent. I had never coached a kicker before because kickers, with all due respect to Rich Eisen, kickers aren't football players. They may be people too, but they're not football players. So my lifetime of coaching football players did not prepare me to deal with kickers. And I struggled with Matt early, but Matt had the veteran presence, the intelligence to kind of come back at me and say, hey, Coach, this doesn't serve any purpose. You and I got to come to an understanding of how we're going to work. And we did, very successfully, because he was outstanding in terms of where he was going to, where he was comfortable making a kick from through the flow of the game. But it's very hard emotionally when a game comes down to it. You know the blood and sweat and tears that's gone into it. And, all week long you look over there and you see the kickers doing whatever it is they do during practice, and you got to come in and do one job, and you don't get it done. I know it's, we're going to support him. He's our guy, and no one play costs us the game. But it's hard. It's hard to not know that there's times you could go over and choke him to death, and there's not a court in America wouldn't convict you.
But you'll yell at another player, but we're very cautious about yelling at a kicker. Why is that?
Because they're not football players. Because the psyche of what they do, it would be counterproductive. One of the first things you have to learn as a coach is there's some people that's the only way you can get their attention. There's others that the minute you raise your voice, they shut down. You're getting absolutely nothing done. And with a kicker, they fall in that latter category. Plus, as a coach, I don't have, probably John Harbaugh is the only one who's coached special teams substantially as a head coach in the NFL. He would probably be the only one that could, with any validity or real teaching in mind, could yell at a kicker and say, hey, you got to do so-and-so. I wouldn't know what to begin to yell at him other than just an emotional response.
And Ndamukong Suh yesterday, after the Dolphins' loss in London, had a lot of no comments. He's not an emotional leader. He said that. Rodney Harrison then came out of those comments by Ndamukong Suh saying he's never played against or with a defensive star who didn't verbalize. Now, it's one thing to say something. You can even show it. You don't have to say it. And Ndamukong Suh is doing neither. Why is that?
Well, it's sad with Ndamukong Suh. One thing that really strikes you, and it's kind of counterintuitive when you're talking about a defensive lineman, he's a very intelligent, thought-out, soft-spoken individual. He doesn't fit your typical, stereotypical perception of a defensive lineman. And the hard thing for him is it was one thing to be the top draft choice and therefore they thought of as de facto leader. It's another when you come to a team that doesn't have a lot of real leadership on the field and you're the highest paid guy. They give you all this money and you're not, where you need to be that de facto leader and you're not. And on a defense right now that really appears to be questioning its leadership by way of Kevin Coyle, the defensive coordinator, and even Joe Philbin, it's a perfect storm of, and I have no idea why Ndamukong Suh approached the way he did, but part of him may be going, hey, this ain't my job, and we're not getting it from my coordinator and my head coach, so why is this falling on me, whether that's fair or not?
Adam Schefter of the Mothership said that the Dolphins are preparing to fire Joe Philbin. He said that 15 minutes ago. Does he deserve to take the fall here?
Well, I'm a coach. At the end of the day, you may not be responsible, but you're going to be held accountable for everything. Our history is, this is about the time. Last year, coaches are going to get fired during the course of the season at a rate that we've never seen before. The last time it was this early, we saw two coaches. I think it was Dennis Allen, and it was interesting that last year at this time, you remember Miami went into the London game, the fourth game of the week, and it was all about Ryan Tannehill. And Joe Philbin wouldn't commit to whether he's my quarterback of the future. He's got to show me here. Well, he went in and played well and ended up holding on to the job going forward, and Miami did okay. The guy on the other side of that, Dennis Allen, ended up getting fired after coming from London in the bye week. So in week 4, when you've had the performance you've had, it is the bye week. If you're going to do it, this is the time you're going to do it. The question becomes, okay, now what? What is it you're hoping to accomplish? Who is it on that staff? And I don't see anybody that's that heir apparent. If the question is you're going to fire the defensive coordinator, you sure as heck can't make him the head coach. Bill Lazor, the offensive coordinator, has just been brought in after last year. They had 90 yards total offense in the first half. You're going to make him the head coach?
Yeah.
What are you going to accomplish here? So other than the emotional showing the fans, yeah, I'm going to do something, there doesn't seem to be that guy that the players are going to rally around, and that never works anyway. So if you're getting ahead of the crowd here and letting the guy go as an emotional response, just know what you're doing.
Yeah, Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk brought that up last night during the show that, if you're going to fire Philbin, who are you going to replace him with? And so I didn't know if that was a stay of execution, but according to Adam Schefter of ESPN, doesn't look like he's going to hold on to his job. The other interesting comments that I heard last week, Bart Scott on a Boston radio station was talking about the lack of toughness with Tom Brady, that he looks at Ben Roethlisberger as a tough guy. Now, you coached Bart Scott. Is Bart actually being serious here that Tom Brady is not a tough quarterback?
Wow. If he is, he's wrong. Bart says a lot of things. And the great thing about Bart is even though he could say some really strange stuff, it's always amusing, even as a player for me. And Bart played for me. It's like the kid, you don't want to laugh at your kid when he says something because you don't want to reinforce it, but sometimes you just can't help yourself with Bart. Tom Brady, not tough enough? Are you kidding me?
Well, he said that he wouldn't be tough enough to sit with the defensive linemen, and it sounded like he was trying to be funny, but when you read something and you don't hear it, it comes off differently. So I don't know. It felt like Bart was saying, hey, I can get some attention if I say some crazy things. I think he came out and said he hopes that Chip Kelly loses every game from here on out. So he's had a couple of comments here. I'm just curious, since you coached him.
Yeah, no, that would go into the category of that's really funny, Bart. You're as screwed up as Hogan's goat, but that's really funny.
Seattle against the Lions tonight. How big is this game?
Well, they're all big. For Seattle at home, obviously they have to have a big game because it needs to be the revalidation of, okay, we've got this thing corrected after an 0-2 start. We saw what we could be last week. We can't let a team like Detroit, who's really struggling, come in here in Seattle because this will really take a chunk out of the armor that we're back on track. And I imagine it's going to go that way. For Detroit, the thing that compounds it for Detroit and the woes that they're having, one, the expectations coming in that we all had for Detroit, and you got to go to the pedigree. There's a lot of teams that could go 0-4 and kind of fight their way through it. Because, we hear it all the time. Well, this team's never gone 0-4 before, or this is a team that's going, what was it, 0-31? So don't think for a second that the players, even though most of them weren't there, or the coaches, but the fans are remembering, oh my God, are we on that slide again?
Jimmy Johnson from Fox said yesterday, Colin Kaepernick looks like he's playing sandlot football. I thought that's when he was at his most dangerous, when he was playing sandlot football.
Yeah, but it's not sustainable, and if you're going to do that, you better be really good on defense and better be running the ball. What I don't see in Colin Kaepernick is any progression at all as a quarterback that can beat you from the pocket. He's always going to have that other element, which is great, and I was a Colin Kaepernick fan and still am to a degree because he's got such unique skills. I think he can develop from the pocket. He just isn't given no chance whatsoever. I see no progression read at all. It's make a play fake, get in the pocket. The guy I'm staring at isn't open. Make it up as you go. And I would love to see, it would be good for Colin Kaepernick, probably terrible for the San Francisco 49ers, but I'd love to see Colin Kaepernick put in a position, say, son, I don't want to see you run the ball one time. I'm going to make you throw the ball 40 times a game and progress from the pocket. We're probably going to get beat. You're probably going to get beat up, but it's the only way that you're going to progress because right now I see no learning curve whatsoever of what it takes to be a pro quarterback.
But he showed glimpses early, though, Brian.
Absolutely, and that's what gives me hope that I think we could say the same thing about Russell Wilson, although he's on the other extreme in terms of success. Until Russell Wilson has to be that 500, 550 throw quarterback, we don't know that he's going to be able to operate in that manner. I think he can. He just hasn't had to at this point, and we've seen some signs, even as well as they're playing now, that he may have to be that guy this year because they're not playing dominant defense. They're not dominating in the running game. So it may fall more on him, and I think he will do it. We don't know about Colin Kaepernick, and unfortunately, he's with a team that needs to see him progress that way. And unfortunately, you don't have the defense in the running game that will help get you past those rough times.
Good to visit with you again, Brian. Thanks for joining us.
Sounds great.